Hey guys, it's Hannah, and today I'm coming to you with a video all about the top 18 books I want to read in 2018. I did a video just like this last year where I talked about the top 17 books I wanted to read in 2017, and essentially this video is kind of like a yearly TBR for me because I don't make monthly TBRs because that's just too restricting for me. I like being able to work towards a reading goal throughout the entire year, and making this type of video definitely helps me with that. So I have rounded up a total of 18 books that I really want to try and get to throughout this year, and today I'm just going to share them with you all. I will just say I'm not going to spend too much time describing the synopsis of each one because there are 18 books that we need to talk about, but without any further ado, let's just get into them. The first book on my list is actually a graphic novel, and that is Persepolis. This is a graphic novel that countless people have been telling me to read ever since I started BookTube. It's basically like a graphic memoir about this woman's life as she lives in Iran through the Iranian Revolution, and that just sounds like something I am definitely going to enjoy. I know it's also a movie, my family's seen the movie, they love the movie, but I haven't read it yet, so I don't want to watch the movie. But like I said, since so many people have recommended this to me, I know that I'm definitely going to enjoy it, so I want to try and pick it up this year. The next book on my list is one that I'm honestly shocked I haven't read yet, and that is the Tales from the Shadowhunter Academy by Cassandra Clare, Sarah Rees Brennan, Maureen Johnston, and Robin Mosserman. This is a companion novella bind-up to the Mortal Instrument series, and it basically follows Simon from the Mortal Instrument series, and I can't really say what happens or what's like taking place in here because it takes place right after City of Heavenly Fire, and that'll be a lot of spoilers if you haven't read that series, so I can't really give you a summary. But I've just heard so many great things about this, and a lot of people have said that it's really, really good. Everyone said to read it before Lady Midnight, but I didn't do that. I've already read Lady Midnight and Lord of Shadows, but it's fine. I still want to read this one, so I definitely want to try and get to it this year. The next book I really want to get to this year is actually the second book in a series that I've already started, and that is A Torch Against the Night, the second book in the Ember in the Ashes series by Sabaa Tahir. And Ember in the Ashes was one of my favorite books I read in 2017. I absolutely loved it, and I know that I'm also going to enjoy this one, and I really need to continue on with the series, which is why this is one of the books that's on this list. If you don't know, this is like a fantasy series that's kind of inspired by the Roman Empire, so it's kind of a war-torn world, and there's romance and there's politics, and it's just really, really good. I highly recommend giving it a try if you're into political fantasies and if you like romance, because the romance in this one is fantastic. But because I liked that book so much, I definitely want to get to this one this year and make it a priority because I know that I'm also really going to love this one too. The next three books on my list are actually all by the same author, and I just really want to read this author and I want to read all three of her books, but that author is Anna Marie McLemore, and the books that I want to read are The Weight of Feathers, When the Moon Was Ours, and Wild Beauty. Anna Marie McLemore's novels are YA and they're also magical realism, and I've really been wanting to read some more magical realism lately, and I've heard that hers are just exceptional, and so I'm really excited to try them all out. I've actually already started reading The Weight of Feathers and I'm really, really loving it so far, and I started reading When the Moon Was Ours quite a while ago and I liked what I had read from it too, so I just know that I'm really going to enjoy her books because I love magical worlds, I love anything with beautiful lyrical writing, and that's what I've heard about all of these, so I definitely think I will love them too. The next book on my list is actually technically three books as well, but I'm just counting it as one, and that is the His Dark Materials trilogy by Philip Pullman. This is just a bind-up of all of the books, but I really, really want to get to these books this year because I've been saying that I want to read them for so long and I still haven't read them, so hopefully this motivates me to read them. All I know about this trilogy is that it's basically a fantasy series and there are like demons and there's magic and it's just said to be extremely good, so I really want to try it out. I have a friend who really, really loves this series and he always tells me to read it because he likes it so much and he wants to be able to talk to me about it, and I understand that feeling, so I definitely want to fix that this year and read it so I can finally talk to him as well as everyone else about this series and hopefully also really love it too. The next book on my list is another magical book, and that is The Bear and the Nightingale by Katherine Arden. I don't really know much about the summary of this book at all, and I kind of want to keep it that way because I do want to be surprised by it. All I really know is that it takes place in this little town that's kind of surrounded by a magical dark forest that's eerie and fantastical in some sort of way, and that kind of reminds me of Uprooted by Naomi Novik, and I actually didn't really like that book very much, but I really liked the summary of it, and this one sounds kind of similar to that, so hopefully I'll enjoy this one. This one has also been compared to The Night Circus several times, which is the main reason why I picked it up because I love that book so much, so hopefully this one has a kind of similar atmospheric vibe. But if it does, I definitely know that I'm going to enjoy it, and I want to try and get to it this year because I really want to read some more magical books this year, and hopefully this one lives up to my expectations. The next book on my list is one that I am so excited to read, and it'll probably be the first book that I read on this entire list, because I'm planning on reading it very soon. And that book is Snow Falling by Jane Gloriana Villanueva. If you didn't know, this is the book that Jane writes in Jane the Virgin, the TV show, which is one of my favorite TV shows of all time. I adore that show, and Jane, the main character, is a writer, and she publishes a book in the show called Snow Falling, and they actually published the book, so this is her book. I don't know who the actual authors of the book are because Jane doesn't actually exist, but nonetheless, I am so excited to read this. All I really want to say about what this is about is that it's a romance novel that's set in Miami in the 1900s, and I don't want to say anything else because I feel like it'll spoil things for anyone who hasn't seen the TV show, and I don't want to spoil anything for anyone because I want everyone to watch this TV show and experience it for all of its glory. But like I said, since this is one of my favorite shows of all time, I'm so happy that this was published. I'm going to start reading it immediately, and I definitely know that it's going to make me cry a lot. It's already made me cry simply just because of the dedication, and I know that it's going to continue to break my heart, but I'm so ready for it. The next book on my list is a 2017 release that I actually never ended up reading, and that is Witchwood by Tahira Mafi. This book is basically described as a Persian-inspired fantasy, and that just sounds perfect and wonderful to me. I never get to read anything that's Persian-inspired, and I really want to, so this sounds like it's going to be something I really enjoy, hopefully. It's basically about this girl who washes dead bodies, and it's set in some like eerie world, and that just sounds super cool, and I'm so excited to see how this book goes. I wasn't a huge fan of Tahira Mafi's Shatter Me trilogy. I liked her writing, but I just didn't care for the story too much, so I'm excited to give her another try and hopefully really enjoy this one. The next book on my list is one that I started in 2017, but I actually never ended up finishing, and one of my goals for this year is to finish all the books that I've already started, and this is definitely one of those books, and that book is They Both Die at the End by Adam Silveira. I read History Is All You Left Me by Adam Silveira last year, and I really enjoyed that one, so I'm already a fan of his writing, and like I said, I already started reading this one, and I enjoyed what I'd read so far, but I just didn't have the time to finish reading the book. This book is set in this world where on the day that you're going to die, it's called your end day, and you have the option to connect with somebody else on that day, someone else who's also going to die, so that you don't have to be alone, and it follows the story of these two boys who are connected to each other on their end day. So it definitely sounds heartbreaking, but also like something that I think I will really love. But yeah, I definitely want to pick this one back up and finish it this year because from what I'd read, I know that I'm going to enjoy this book, and I know it's going to break my heart, and I can't wait for both of those things. The next book on my list is a classic that I've been wanting to read for several years now, but this year I want to try and make it a priority, and that is A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens. I honestly don't really know anything about the summary of A Tale of Two Cities. I don't really know what it's about at all, and I just want to keep it that way. I want to be surprised by it. The only other Dickens book I've read is Great Expectations, and I wasn't too big of a fan of that one, but I do want to give him another try and read some more of his books, so I think this one will be a good place to start. It's also the only other one I own. And if I'm being quite honest, one of the main reasons I really want to read this book too is because it is referenced so heavily in the Infernal Devices series, because Will and Tessa love this book, and I don't really understand most of the quotes and references that they have from this book in that series, and I want to be able to understand them, so I really want to read the source material so that I can go back and reread those and actually get it. And this may be embarrassing, but the fact that they like this book makes me want to read this book even though they're fictional characters. I don't care, I still want to read it. The next book on my list is another book that is the second book in a series that I've already started, and that is The Angel's Game, the second book in the Shadow of the Wind series by Carlos Ruiz Zafón. Shadow of the Wind was like my second favorite book I read in 2017. It's one of my all-time favorite books. It is so incredibly good, and I didn't know it was a series for the longest time, and then I found out that it was, and I actually owned the second book already, but I didn't realize that it was the second book in this series. But because I enjoyed that book so much, I know that I have to continue on, and I am so excited to dive into this one. Shadow of the Wind, if you didn't know, is a historical fiction novel that takes place over the span of I think like 50 or so years during and after the time of the Spanish Civil War. It's devastating, beautifully written, it has such a rich and layered plot, and it's just one of the most exceptional books I have ever read, so I need to read the second book like right now. I know that this is also going to be an all-time favorite, and this series is going to become an all-time favorite, so I know that this has to be a book that I read in 2018. The next book on my list is actually a nonfiction book, and that is The Princess Diarist by Carrie Fisher. I'm a huge Star Wars fan and a huge Carrie Fisher fan, and I have had this book sitting on my shelf for a little bit now, and I've been wanting to read it for so long, and I do want to read some more nonfiction this year, and I think that this will be a good one to pick up since it's one that I already own. I think reading it will definitely also make me cry because I'll just get emotional thinking about Carrie Fisher while reading this, but I'm still excited to read it and I definitely think I will enjoy it. The next book on my list is another historical fiction novel, but this time it's YA historical fiction, and that is That Inevitable Victorian Thing by E.K. Johnston. This book follows the story of a descendant of Queen Victoria, and she basically has to get married because it's the custom for her to have an arranged marriage, but before that she gets a summer to herself where she can travel, and she ends up going to Canada and she poses there as just like a commoner, and she meets these two people, this boy and this girl, and I'm pretty sure she falls in love with both of them. And from what I can guess, either they're all going to be in a polyamorous relationship or she's bisexual and it's a love triangle and she has to pick between the two of them. Either way, it sounds fantastic and I know that I'm going to have a great time reading this. I'm a huge fan of the TV show Victoria on PBS. I've been watching it like obsessively and it's just so good. It's one of my favorite historical dramas, and so when I heard that this one was also about a descendant of Queen Victoria, I knew that I had to read this. But I haven't heard too much about this book at all, and I feel like YA historical fiction is kind of a rarity, and every time I find it and read it, I have liked it. So I'm really hoping that this will be another one that I also really enjoy. The next book I really want to read in 2018 is Rebekah by Daphne du Maurier. This is another historical fiction novel. This time it's adult, and it is set in England and France, I believe. I'm not 100% positive about the time period, but it follows the story of this girl named Rebekah who goes to the south of France, and she ends up meeting this man and falling in love with him, and he proposes to her very quickly and the two of them get married, and then she moves in with him, and it all happens so fast that she realizes she doesn't actually know very much about him at all. And then after she moves in with him, she realizes that he actually is still in love with his dead wife, and her presence is still kind of around in his life, and that causes a lot of trouble and problems for her. This is another like classic, or maybe modern classic if you want to call it that I've just heard fantastic things about, and so many people talk about this book, and I've been wanting to read it for a while, and ever since I got it and saw how pretty the cover was, it's just been sitting on my shelf and eyeing me and asking me to read it, and I still haven't read it yet. So I want to make 2018 the year that I finally do. The next book on my list is a YA contemporary, and that is 10 Things I Can See From Here by Carrie Mack. Quite honestly, I don't know anything about the actual synopsis of this book. I really don't know what the plot is. I don't know anything about the characters. All I know is that the main character has anxiety, and this book is about a girl who deals with anxiety, and that's why I wanted to read it. As someone who also struggles with anxiety, I really enjoy reading books about characters who also deal with it because it can feel very comforting at times and reassuring. So that's why I really wanted to try this one out, and also because it's gotten some great reviews from people too. So yeah, hopefully I pick this one up soon and also end up enjoying it. And finally, the very last book on my list of books I need to read in 2018 is Language of Thorns by Leigh Bardugo. This is a short story collection of fairy tales and folklore from the Grisha universe. Essentially, Leigh Bardugo wrote a book about the fairy tales that the characters from the Grisha universe would have heard growing up, and I think that's the coolest thing in the world. I love fairy tales and folklore, so getting to read one about a fantasy world just sounds so exciting and good, and I can't wait to read this one. I can't believe I didn't read it in 2017 when it came out, so I know that I have to pick it up this year. So that is it for my list of top 18 books I need to read in 2018. I hope you all enjoyed watching this video. Let me know in the comments down below if you have read any of the books that I mentioned in this video. Which ones do you think I should get around to first? Also, what are the top 3 books that you really want to read in 2018? If you'd like to follow me on any of my social media, all of my links are in the description box as always. But thank you all so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!